Hello, friends. I'm Lynn Shematek with the Good News team. Let's meet Markiesha E. Wilson, change consultant, executive coach, and best-selling author. Join our co-hosts, Deacons John Shematek and Lauren Welch, as we bring you another podcast episode in our second season of Good News, all about people making a difference in the world.
Welcome, Markiesha E. Wilson, back to our podcast, Good News. It's so great to have you back with us.
We are delighted to have you with us today, Markiesha. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, John and Lauren. I've missed you guys.
We've missed you too. I don't remember when we actually recorded the first episode, but it aired in October 23. So that's the last we've seen of you, but not the last we've heard about you.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago, but
It
I'm
was.
back.
Yeah.
Accepting the invitation both ways.
Thank you. We're just getting our second season started of interviews, and you are our very first person who accepted a second invitation. So we're quite honored. So, Markiesha, since then, what have you been up to?
Gosh, now that I know it's been since 2023, so many things have changed since 2023. Some things are still the same, right? I'm still doing a good bit of human capital consulting, still doing executive coaching. I've taken some exciting new clients, being able to work through their strategy and such. And I also contributed to a book. So now I'm a best-selling author.
Wow, that's great. The book that you contributed to is called The Rich Code.
Cracking the Rich Code in volume 13.
Volume 13. You're in it, and it's best-selling.
So that was such an honor. I was reached out to, and who knows, might have been because I was on this show with you, but a gentleman reached out to me on LinkedIn and told me about this series called Cracking the Rich Code. And he asked me if I would be willing to contribute a chapter. After reading what it was about, it's a catchy title, but it's not specifically about what you might think when you hear, oh, it's how do I get rich quick? It's not about that. It's really about the values, characteristics, and behaviors of people that live a rich life. And that can be defined so many different ways. So I was excited to contribute my chapter. It's one of the, I think, greatest things I've written.
It was a logical follow-on to your first book. But that was a whole book that you wrote. In the Climb, 8 Audacious Actions to Overcome Life and Climb the Corporate Ladder with Joy.
Yes, that book is really my whole heart, soul, musings, advice is in that book. And I mentioned this in the chapter in Cracking the Rich Code. I was having a conversation, and this is completely true, with my hairstylist son. We were having lunch, and we were talking about being rich. And I was saying, I define it this way and that way. And he said, for me, if someone has left a blueprint for life, then that makes them rich and wise. And I said, that's exactly what In the Climb is. That's the blueprint that I leave the earth with, right? Is that where I talk about these stories of my life and what I learned, what I did well, what I didn't do well, and tips on what you can do. The 8 audacious actions to overcome life and climb the corporate ladder with joy. Look how fast I said that.
Wow.
But what people tell me when they read the book is that it is really the overcoming of life these 8 things work for, right? It may not even be climbing the corporate ladder. It's climbing whatever your climb is, whether it's financial, spiritual, emotional, relational. But that's what folks say. I give them great wisdom around. And so that's my blueprint, my turquoise blueprint, if you will.
That's a great way to look at it. We've actually just completed an 8-part discussion series between Lauren and me primarily called On the Beatitudes. There are 8 audacious Beatitudes, and we called it the blueprint for the Christian life.
Did not know that, but yeah. And actually, oh my gosh, I'd be so disappointed if I were to say out loud I didn't know there were 8 Beatitudes.
It depends on which
I'm
book
in
of the
trouble.
Bible you
Right.
read. You
Okay,
can have
good.
different-
And I'm safe.
You're safe.
Good.
We know there are 10 commandments, but there might be 8 beatitudes, there might be 9. Who knows? Someone said one thing, another said another. But anyway,
Someone's up.
yeah, your book, your first book has done well, I take it. Is that right?
Yes, it's done. When people ask me for the numbers, it's not something that I keep track of. I keep track of impact and the stories that I get. Keep track of the people that come to me to say, I read your book and it did this for me. But it has done well, meaning that the impact. It does sell well. Everyone knows that cracking the rich code doesn't necessarily mean that I sold a lot of books. For me, it's about the impact. And people ask for it. Once they read it, they ask to give it to other people. And so that is when I know it's having real impact, is that people read it and say, oh no, my brother needs to read this. My uncle needs to read this. My sister's got to read this. I wish my boss would read it.
Yeah.
Markiesha, your article in the Cracking the Rich Code is a surprising answer to big questions. Can you share some of what you wrote in that?
Oh, I absolutely can. Giving is my core value. That is my number one core value. It's in the 8 audacious actions, right? I say exhibit generosity. It's one of the 8. Because it's so much me, it is my core. And I wanted to talk more about it. But if you want to know behind the scenes, I accidentally discovered this to be my chapter. No one knows this. Only John and Lauren and a couple of close friends know this. But after the climb, I had been asked to speak different places. It was at the height of COVID, and I was preparing myself for a keynote speech. So I started to write my keynote speech. I'm not sure if I had done the TED Talk by the time I interviewed with all of you last time, but I did a TEDx talk in South Africa on forgiving.
Yes.
I was going through the process of preparing the same way for my keynote speech. I was trying to figure out what nuggets, if in 45 minutes I had to share my blueprint and my wisdom and my everything, what would I say? And I kept circling around. My core value is generosity. It's what I want to say. I want to talk a little bit about my life, but I want my call to action at the end to be that folks need to give more. It's how I figured things out. So I was working on that and had to write this chapter. But believe it or not, they were two completely separate things in my head. They were completely different. I was working on a keynote speech, and then I was beginning the work on the chapter. And as I was speaking with a friend who's in publishing and so on, she was like, read me this speech. And I was like, sure. So I started reading the speech to her, and I don't understand why that's not the chapter. It's the same thing. It really didn't click to me. And I consider myself relatively smart, a 4.0 in graduate school. But I think it was divine alignment that I was talking about the essence of who I was. And generosity is the essence of who I am. And I did have all these life questions. And so once I really synthesize it, that's why the title so long is I discover it in the writing of this. As I'm asking myself these questions, how am I going to get it over? How am I going to get through? How am I going to live this? And for me, it was giving. Yeah.
As I remember, Markiesha, the last time we talked, you said you wanted to be a philanthropist.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why it's so interesting, because it is my core value, which is why I knew I was going to weave it in here. Since 2023, I've been able to give 2 or 3 book scholarships each year. Just yesterday, I was able to give a very large donation to my church. My pastor is retiring after 50 years.
Wow.
Yes, and I was able to give a very large donation that they're going to use toward the new furbishing of the video and sound system. So I'm doing it, Lauren.
There was never any question.
It was for me, because I was like, where's this money coming from that I'm going to be giving away? So I've been thrilled to be able to do those things.
That is great, because when you talk about being generous, where I've appreciated your generosity is in your wisdom and what you give to all of us in your writings. And when we talk with you, it's so deep and genuine. And you said, I wonder, where's the money going to come from? I know you're a person of great faith, and the money just comes when it needs to come.
I think also when you give to people that are in need, it always comes back to you in the way that you need it. And when you give, like you're saying, John, it's not just money, because that's the big thing. People are like, I'd be a giver if I had more money. You have time, you have talent, you have expertise, you have skill. You probably can cut the grass for somebody. There's so many things that people can give other people. I think money is the great excuse, right? Honestly, I can't help it because I don't have money, but there's time, it's wisdom, it's support, it's a smile. I've made this a practice since I was a server at 17 years old. I don't leave a restaurant without that server feeling appreciated.
Mm.
Even if the food wasn't good, even if their service wasn't the best, I will give them some type of encouragement. And I believe that's a gift as well.
It is, for sure. I don't want to give away your chapter for because I want people to get your book and read the whole thing or read the chapter. But I can tell you one thing that really did capture my imagination is you started talking about superpowers. A lot of us use that all the time in our language. You say, if I had a superpower, what would I want it to be? And you had a completely different spin on that in your chapter.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It's so engaging. I loved your first book. I did read it from cover to cover. I enjoyed the cover. I remember that bird of paradise and your mom's calla lilies and all that stuff,
Yep.
which is very cool. But this, I don't know. Maybe it just, I needed to hear what you had to say.
Do you want me to read a little bit of an excerpt from the book?
That would be awesome.
Who are you? What on earth are you supposed to be doing? Lately, we've begun to believe that all humans have superpowers, right? People are claiming every superpower from empathy to telepathy. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea of having a superpower. I choose to be invisible. I think I'd be able to get around faster and learn what people say and do when they think they're alone. Being invisible would be the best way to observe my clients. Knowing your purpose power is far more critical. What are you doing here? What are you really supposed to be doing here? What is your purpose power, and how do you find out if you don't know your purpose power? If you raise your hand, this is a question I can help you answer. When you take a self-inventory and identify that thing, service, talent, or expertise that you love to give away, that is where you're on your purpose. So that's my take on it. So I believe it's far more important to find your purpose powers, that thing that energizes you over and over again, that you love to do, that you literally can't not do, can't
That's
stop
right.
it. That is what I believe is your purpose power.
And it's related to giving something away, giving exercising your gifts, I think is one of the ways.
Yes. And
Right.
you all are in the spiritual, so you know that, like you said about the Beatitudes, right? There's anywhere from 12 to 25 or so spiritual gifts, right? That we've
Yeah.
all been given. And I believe mine are encouragement, teaching, giving, and faith when I take the spiritual gifts inventory. It's about figuring out how you're using that. How does that manifest for you? So if it's in teaching, I'm always going to be teaching or encouraging some server, teaching them how to do it better next time if I've gotten bad service, or encouraging them to continue doing what they're doing. When you find out what the gift is and you're finding a way to operate, or it finds you, because a lot of times you find your purpose because people keep coming to you, asking you for that thing. Some people are probably like, Lauren, you make the best this, or Lauren, can you help me with this problem? And the more people do, that's when you start to ask yourself and take inventory. What do people consistently ask me for? And how does it feel when I give it to them? That's a way to discover your purpose power.
Hey, Markiesha, I'm thinking that where you're leading with that is when you think of how do I feel when I'm exercising,
Yes.
it's the right purpose if fill in the blank, right? If you're feeling,
Yes, absolutely. If you're feeling joy, and I could even go so far as to take it to the dark side, because you asked what's happened since 2023. Everything hasn't been wonderful. It has not been wonderful.
Yep.
Since 2023. I lost my brother just this October. You might recall on our last call, I had already lost a sister. I had already lost my mother, and I had already lost my father. So from 2023 to where we stand today, I was taking care of my brother. He was in a facility in Pennsylvania. I'd become the primary caregiver, and then I lost him in September. He had a number of medical issues. John, this is your power. When you are low and dark, but you do this thing and you feel bright and joy.
Yes.
My brother was, I think, some kind of angel. He taught me so much about loving the simple things in life. He loved 2 Boston cream chocolate covered donuts from Dunkin'. That's what he wanted all the time. That brought him joy, and it brought me great joy to bring it to him. And even in losing him, figuring out how I can give and do for others brought me great joy. And you're right, that is a big way of knowing that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
And Markiesha, would you say your faith must have been part of what sustained you through all that? Also, was one of the aspects of that this joy that you felt even in the midst of a really bad situation where there was suffering and you were still able to exercise a gift there?
Absolutely. I'm a woman of faith, and so was my brother. He knew where he was going when he closed his eyes. And I also knew that my faith was sustaining me, supporting him, going every 2 weeks, jumping on the train, all those things. It was my source to be able to do it. And it's also the joy that I felt when I could see his face, and he just lit up to see those 2 chocolate covered Boston cream donuts. Giving gives me great joy.
Markiesha, I know you're so integrated that your whole philosophy of life, your faith, your understanding of generosity is totally part of what you do professionally as well in your coaching and writing. Has something changed about that? The world is very different in many ways. The big world, in addition to our own families and what we're going through personally. Is this a harder message to deliver? Is it heard? Are people ready to hear this?
This is such a great question. The time that we're living in is unprecedented in so many ways. The world today is changing every day. It's rapidly changing. It's changing in ways that you don't expect. It's changing for people that you don't expect it to change for. Well, I am a change consultant. I've been doing change management for years. So when you ask, is the message harder to hear? I think people are a little bit numb and a little bit deaf right now, but I think the message is more necessary to hear right now, which is that change, whether it's your job, which a lot of people are experiencing right now, even just the way that it's changed to just do it or to show up at it physically, the energy that it takes to show up as your authentic self when you're going through stressors with potential job loss. And all of these changes are critically important for people to hear now and get tools to work through them. The message around positivity is harder for people to receive right now, but the message around my need to understand the change that I find myself in and tools that I can use to manage how it feels and how I show up at work, at home, or in my organizations that I support, I think is critically, it's more important now than ever that people understand how change feels, the cycle of it, the psychology of it, and what it does to you, how fear can paralyze you in a change situation if you don't consider the possibility of positivity. So now, where I start with people is let's just talk about how this feels to you. And then we can get to those 8 audacious actions, get through the thing. Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
I'm struck by that. Actually, that answer surprised me a bit, and I'm delighted to hear it because I've met so many people that have sunk into a deep valley of despair almost, which is that's.
Oh, yeah.
On the other hand,
I went
okay?
there.
Oh,
Them there.
yeah.
I was in that valley called despair, but I had to make a conscious decision to get out of that valley of despair. I had to fight for that. I'm not going to lie to you. September, lost my brother. October, my relationship got bad. November, I lost a contract. Pushed through Christmas because you have to, and it's wonderful. January, lost another contract. So yes, when I tell you, I'm not just coming to you like Pollyanna, but it is because I went through the valley of despair. I saw people there and I made a conscious decision and I crawled out of it. I still have dirt under my fingernails from crawling out of that valley of despair. But John, Lauren, we have to make a decision to do that. And people have to find whatever you can draw on. For me, it's faith. And for me, it's also my ancestors, because I haven't told you this, but most people assume without me saying that I'm Black, because I am a Black woman.
We did notice that.
You noticed, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit, it's St. Patrick's Day today. I don't know when this will air, but I am also a quarter Irish, but my grandfather, half Irish, half Puerto Rican. But because I have some ancestors who lived a worse day than I did. You notice my company's name is Wilson Chapman. Chapman is the name of my great grandparents, Elizabeth Chapman. And I named it for her because when I grew up, Chapman's was a grocery store. She also had owned a fish market and a dance hall. And so Chapman for me was pulling my ancestors' legacy forward. And now I lean in on Elizabeth Chapman's resilience. She had been born in 1900 and she owned businesses all the way into the early 1980s. So
Wow.
that tells you she lived through Jim Crow. She lived through the civil rights movement. She lived with knowing her grandparents were surely slaves. And she had less than I did. I have a master's degree. She probably finished high school. So if I can't draw on my ancestors and my faith to get through this dark valley of despair, what am I really doing out here? For that, yes, John and Lauren, I was in the valley of despair, but I had to make a conscious decision to draw on my faith and my ancestors and the wisdom of others to get out. This is for a history lesson on what people have done through time when they were feeling oppressed or miserable or hopeless. For a history lesson on how they got through it, there's this book. It's called the Bible.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
It's very contemporary, isn't it? I mean, it's ancient but contemporary. I'm just so struck, Markiesha, by people I think are so hungry for purpose. That's why I just love your purpose power analogy. Yeah. I'm struck again by how in your professional life and personal life, and I know that they're not separate at all, really, but how
No, not anymore.
you're Markiesha no matter what. You mentioned vulnerability. To be vulnerable with someone, you do have to trust them. So there's got to be someone that you're trusting. When you're asking, hypothetically ask Lauren how she's doing, I bet when you ask, you look like you care about the answer. It's not like, how you doing, but don't tell me because I'm busy. type of thing.
No, it's absolutely.
That's a gift. That is a gift.
Thank you. It's interesting because I'm a trainer also, right? And we're taught when you become a trainer of adults to wait 10 seconds after you ask a question because people need to process. So I'm trained to wait 10 seconds. So when I say, how are you doing? I'm going to wait. And that pause gives people time to decide how I want to answer. But it does also mean I've held space. And even if it's 10 seconds, sometimes I might have been the only person that day that held space in this 10 seconds. Like the service culture is where I do my daily work, right? Like preachers, they show up on Sundays, but as a person, I do my daily work in service. If I am in a grocery store, the line has been long, the people have been rude, and I've waited in line a long time. I will always say to that cashier, hang in there. How are you doing? This line has been going on. Sometimes they're shocked that someone actually cared enough to ask the question and wait the 10 seconds. I do actually care about the answer. I actually like people. There are people that don't like people. I actually like people.
There are. Giving that 10 seconds, Markiesha, you're creating sacred space. People might not name that sacred space, but they can feel it. And that's
Yeah.
why many times they can respond to you vulnerably.
I think what has made me a successful professional and executive coach, right? I was already an executive coach before Georgetown certified me, right? And it had already found me. I was already doing it. I've always had this ability to discover, see the stress in a person and give them a relief valve, like whether that has been a joke, like going to my top executives like, goodness gracious, what is going on around here? You must want to choke everybody in this building. Just giving them something to say that they can never say. That's been a way of giving leaders relief or just holding that space. But I think what has made me successful is that I do actually care. I actually like people and I have a disarming way. I'm not 5 feet tall. I think that's part of it too.
Right.
See, we can't tell that on Zoom.
But
See, boom, that's it. She could be 10 feet tall.
people say I have a tall personality, but something about my
Do.
stature and my personality is disarming because I try to create a comfortable space for you to share. Last year, I closed out with one CEO. This CEO had a very powerful position in Baltimore, and everybody was after this person. I won't say the gender, and that makes it easier to discover, but they just had no safe space. Even that time together in the beginning, I had to build trust with John. I had to work to build that trust because they were stuck in feeling there. Me just being able to spend that time and help them quiet their spirit and thoughts long enough, share what the challenges were, gave me time to help them discover they already knew. That's why when people ask me a lot of times, what do you do for a living? My first answer, and people have told me this sounds arrogant, but I don't think it does. I say nothing. And they say nothing. I said, yeah, I tell people what they already know, and people call it consulting.
That's beautiful.
Tell you what you know.
Yeah. Markiesha, you've given us so much wisdom today, and I know Lauren always has her one last question, but before she does, I'm going to ask your permission if I can read a sentence from your chapter, give more of the surprising answer to life's big questions and cracking the rich
Yes,
code, volume 13, because this has struck me very close, it might have been right at the very end of your chapter. But I just want to read it because this is what you mean to me.
Oh,
It goes like this. 50 years from now, when someone asks, who was Markiesha E. Wilson? The answer is that she was a Christian black woman who inspired everyone and gave everything she could. Amen to that. Amen to that.
amen.
It's very
It
clear.
brought tears to my eyes reading my own words.
Yeah, people go and buy this book. That's the only chapter I've read in it so far, but it's powerful. And as is your first book, these are great reads. We highly recommend them. We'll have the links in the show notes, Markiesha, as well as the link to your website if anybody needs to get in touch with you professionally.
Thank you.
Lauren, let me ask, do you have any last item you would like to check in with Markiesha?
Yeah, we'll give Markiesha one more chance because I know she has more inspiration to share with us. What would you like to leave us with to think about until we see you next time, Markiesha?
Yes. Oh, that's a great question. And I think what I want to leave you and your viewers with is just a knowing that no matter what your eyes may see, no matter what you're going through in this day and time, you have everything you need inside of you. If you believe in God, believe that God put everything you need for this moment. It's no accident that you're living in this moment. You have everything you need inside of you to move your life forward in the direction that you need it to go, you want it to go, and God has said for it to go. It's all inside of you already. Be very careful not to let the distractions of this time keep you from going where you need to go. Be careful not to let fear, anxiety stress, or other people's fear, anxiety, or stress keep you from going where you know God wants you to go.
That's very good advice for all of us. I need to remember that often. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to thank all who are watching and listening today. Until next time, peace and blessings.
This episode of Good News has been brought to you by Listening for Clues. For more podcasts, check out our YouTube channel or our website listeningforclues.com.